Yo, what's going on guys? Jared here, back at again with another video, and this is going to be a card discussion video. I know yesterday I brought you a GOATY deck profile that I think could be a sleeper pick into the upcoming format with some modifications, of course, but I want to talk to you about a different type of sleeper pick, this is more of a discussion on a single card that I think could interact very well and is very easily accessible for a lot of decks. And the way that the meta is shaping up to be next format, I also think that this could just be, might be able to squeeze in depending on how non-engine starts looking for a lot of decks. So yeah, without further ado, we're going to jump right into it, and please subscribe if you enjoy. Okay guys, so very quickly, the card that I wanted to discuss with you was actually Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. A lot of you guys remember this from Despia and a lot of Despia branded builds. This is a card that has not seen a lot of play recently since Brandon has kind of taken a stoop down in play. But this card is actually pretty, you could splash it into a couple things with things like a Luber and Tragedy and Branded Fusion with a couple of things that Fusion summon, not including also Quem and some other things. So this is a very accessible card for possibly many different strategies, things like Chimera, even Runic that is only Fusion summoning and it's only requiring a light and dark, including a tier limit with the Despia also works. So there's multitudes of ways to get to this is my point. And I want to go over, let's go over what it does first, and then I want to talk about it a little bit more. So while you control the Fusion Summon card, your opponent must pay 600 to activate any cards or effects. So that's per card, per effect. So if a card like, let's say Runic Fountain, for instance, if they activate the Fountain, that's 600. And then if they activate a Runic spell and then try to activate the Fountain's effect to draw 3, that'll be an additional 600 plus an additional 600 for the Runic spell they activated. So that's what that means for cards and effects. The second effect is if your opponent controls a Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Exceed, or Link monster while it's in the graveyard, you can just special it back for free, but banish it when it leaves the field as a quick effect. And you can only use this effect of Masquerade once per turn. The main part of the effect that I want to focus on here is actually the first effect. And the reason why is because coming out into, again, Phantom Nightmare, which is where the format is going to be headed, and I think that is going to be the main aspect of what everyone's testing for. Phantom Nightmare introduces a lot of lines and combos that involve a multitudes of different effects activating in sequence to get to a certain point in, let's say, a game state, right? So, like, for instance, we have like something like Snake Eye Ash. This card by itself is going to be doing a lot of effect activations between this, adding the populous summoning, and then excuse me, and then searching, and then going into like Link Rainbow, then using the spell, then summon Ponix get Sanctuary. And the point is the lines are a lot. There are a lot of cards effects and there are a lot of cards activations, and it's a lot of burn damage if you have 2 of these on the field. I think 2 Masquerades is really the sweet number for what you want here. And there's also additional cards that are like kind of free in a way that are triggering the Masquerade to be able to burn your opponent as well. Things like the newly Upstart Goblin at 3, which could see play possibly depending on how the format goes if Prosperity falls out of favor. Upstart Goblin dealing 12 damage to you and drawing a card's like super detrimental, and just another activation that could make this card dead eventually if they play too many cards. Same thing with Bonfire coming out. This is just an additional 1200 damage depending on how your opponent's hand is. And I have a bunch of other decks in here that could be meta or in the future meta that are especially hurt and hindered by a Masquerade. Now, I'm not saying your entire end board is just 2 Masquerades. I would expect you to have something else on the field too, but I am just simply pointing out that I think Masquerade in the future of the game and the format could possibly have very strong implications if they are not dealt with appropriately, if that makes sense. So things like Droll Lockbot aren't going to do a lot. If you can get both of them out under turn 5, under 5 summons, or if you summon them on your opponent's turn and split them up a little bit, that could be very, very problematic playing around something like Nibiru. There is also counters to this, of course, things like Droplet, Dark Ruler, even like Runic Freezing Curses if they hit one of them. But the point is that if they don't, depending on how the format goes, and if they aren't playing those cards, or if they don't have the out for them and it's like just a lot of engine, there's only a select few outs to these cards. Something like SP Little Knight would be the main one that you would have to look out for, right? That is a card that will immediately deal with one of these, no problem. But that is where you would need other interruptions, right? Maybe if you're doing this in like a branded strategy, you might have a Branded and Red set, and then you can just make another Masquerade. Anything of that nature, just something that can like make these on the field pretty consistently, because over time, it just gets more and more oppressive. And obviously, this is not good against every single deck. I think possibly the Labyrinth deck, this could be decent against, but if they get their engine going quick enough with things like Big Welcome and start playing on your turn one before these are established, it can cause more of an issue, and Big Welcome is a big headache for something like this. Vanadium, big combo deck, could cause a lot of issues for this deck, because like you just do not have the time when you're comboing to be able to get through something like this. Another card that could be detrimental to something like this is Fenrir, right? Being able to special Fenrir, enter battle phase, attack the clear one could be a problem. Again, this is all dependent on just if you have just two of these, but if you have other stuff to back it up, that's where this becomes super crazy to me. Also, if you like maybe go from like a Mirror Jade into a Masquerade, or like you use a Mirror Jade interruption first and go into Masquerade, or you get them to bait the battle phase, then in main phase 2, you can go 2 Masquerades, anything like that. So I just wanted to kind of preface this card a little bit, because I think it is a little bit undervalued and not respected enough right now in the format where Dark Ruler is probably not going to see play. So yeah, all of these decks, I think that this card does a good detriment amount to it. Rescue Ace is probably going to be like on the lesser end of that, because they can get to Turbulence pretty quickly, but it just depends on how far they want to extend past that, right? Because they can go something with like Hydra and Airlifter, Emergency, Turbulence, and then depending on what spells and traps they have, to be able to out these can be annoying. But even that, just those 5 cards by themselves, and that's without using Bonfire, even Snake Eyes, Wanted, anything like that, you are already at 5,000 with just like at least 5,000, actually 6,000, with just the Rescue Ace cards themselves. So that's what I mean. Like, I feel like even to get to the most basic of lines, you have to be dumping a lot of life points if you don't have the specific answers to these cards. So that's what I really wanted to talk about today. And let me know what you guys think of a card like Masquerade, and what decks do you think this could be used the most? Obviously, Branded Despia, because the first one that comes to mind, but there are other strategies that can make cards like this. I remember making this in Tier Limit when Branded Tier was more of a thing. I thought that was a really cool, interesting way to do it, because, you know, you can play Branded Fusion with Tier Limits, and then you can make the Rebellion, and then go into the Masquerade, and it's very cool interactions and difference. So let me know in the comments what you think about Masquerade. Do you think it might see more play coming into the future? Do you think it's a decent counter if it's unprepared for going into the future? And what other decks you think you'll see it in? So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion, this little highlight of this card. And if you did, please subscribe. And until then, I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.